Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, mammals, cats, dogs, chickens, ducks, and all that in between. Today we're going to be dealing with an X370 motherboard from ASUS, the AMD 3700X, a 750 watt power supply from EVJ, and 32 gigs of non-ECC RAM from Corsair. This will be for our new Unraid server build, and the reasons why we're going to do all this will come to light as we progress through this video. But first, let's go ahead and knock out a couple of things. The first being, why did I go with non-ECC RAM? Well, ECC RAM is incredibly expensive on DDR4 platform or whatever you want to call it, and I can't afford it. Well, I guess I could, but I don't want to because it's way too expensive. So we got a 32 gigabyte kit for now. We may upgrade to 64 gigabytes in the future, but that will remain to be seen until we get there. The reason why I went through the 3700X is because it offers 8 cores and 16 threads, which I think is plenty. But one of the biggest reasons why is because the amount of power it uses. So the old Unraid server uses about 250 watts while idle. I'm not sure what this uses, but we might take a look at that if I can remember. And this should use a lot less power. And the reason why is for when we move, but I'll save that for you for another video in the future. So why a 750 watt power supply? Well, it was the cheapest one I could find, and it's also one of the only modular ones that can support 2 CPU power. So you can't really see from here, but there's a 4-pin here. I'm sorry, a 6-pin here. No, I lied. There's an 8-pin here and a 4-pin here, and we need a power supply that can do both. So there's 2 power supply or 2 CPU cables that can run out of here and go into our motherboard, and that was very important. Or else if I would have got something smaller, because this is totally overkill and I'll never even use 1/2 of the power, but it is gold rated, which means it'll be pretty efficient, even around like, I don't know, 80-70% of load, which we probably won't even touch. So already got everything installed. We're sticking with the stock heatsink mainly because, well, again, money. So we can save a lot of money here by using the 3700X's stock heatsink. This is supposed to be a nice upgrade over the previous generations. It does have a core or a copper core on it, which is absolutely wonderful. And I can't say enough great things. And of course, the very last thing, we are going to be adding a speaker header, or whatever it's called, to the motherboard, so we know when it does things, because Unraid does do sound out. And that speaker thing is from like servers from ancient times. I've had it for years. I almost threw it away not too long ago, but I decided to keep it for obvious reasons. Maybe they're not obvious, just in case reasons. So I already booted this thing on. I know it works, hence why the RAM's on here and stuff, but we need to get a graphics card. So the last thing that we're going to do with this is, because we do need discrete graphics to have Unraid boot up, is we're going to be installing a Quadro P600, at least for now. We may switch this out with a different Quadro later. It just kind of depends on how things work out, and we'll get there when we get there. But we're going with the Quadro P600, and yeah, hopefully it works. We got a lot to do. I think the first thing we need to do is actually turn off that server and get ready for the migration. And we're literally just going to do an in-place drop-in. So we're going to take this motherboard, we'll take the old motherboard and all that stuff out, drop this one in, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, we should be in business. So let's get to it. Okay, so before we transplant the hardware, we're going to have to shut down everything within Unraid. So I'm going to go ahead and do that simply just by selecting each one of these applications and stopping them. Now, for you at home, it's really important that you back up everything within your array first. And then once you have all your backups, you also want to do a parity check. So I've already done all this stuff on my own, so I'm not really worried about losing any data. But when you do it at home, make sure you do those things at the minimum. So once we stop this, we will no longer be on or have internet connectivity, I believe, or something like that. Okay, now that everything has been stopped, we can just go ahead and shut down. So we're going to stop the array. Yes. Now this part always takes really long, and it's kind of weird because it takes so long. All right, there we go. So our array is now stopped, and we can power down. Now the scary part begins. Oh, the server just beeped. So the scary part begins because we are literally going to take our USB thumb drive out, take out all the hardware, and just do an in-place swap basically, and hopefully you won't run any problems. So let's go over there and take a look. All right, I just kind of unplug all this stuff from back here. Man, it's been a long time since I've cracked this bad boy open. Oh wow, I forgot how heavy she is. And dusty. Oh boy. Oh boy. She is pretty dusty. All right, let's crack this thing open if I can. There we go. And see how she is. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful server. I can't believe I'm gonna replace this thing. Oh, I actually didn't realize I have almost an identical power supply in here already. It's another EVGA G2, but the new one's a G5. We may actually just leave this one in here because it looks like it has enough power, I think. All right, well, I guess, time to just go ahead and start removing everything. All right, so I think I've got everything unplugged and unscrewed, and we are ready to get the motherboard out of here. This is gonna be a pain in the arse. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I don't know if I have enough clearance. Holy cow. Oh, I'm stuck on something. There we go. Wow, what a beautiful motherboard. This thing has been absolutely rock solid and just absolutely amazing the entire time I've had it. Okay, so I decided that I am gonna leave the original power supply in here because they don't actually look too much different. They seem to have all of the same specs as far as I can tell. There are some minor differences like in percentages. I think the newer one might just be rounding up while the old one isn't rounding at all. Specifically talking about like amperage, some of the amperages that are listed. Wow, that is not going in. There we go. So anyway, so we're just gonna leave the old power supply in there, and then we'll use the new power supply for the other server, because that's, just to be clear, we're not using the old Xeons. We'll still have a use for those in the future, but this will be the primary server going forward, powered on 24/7, yada yada yada, all that business. So let's get this in here real quick. Okay, so some of the downsides of this particular motherboard is it doesn't have as much fan support as the ASRock motherboard that we just ripped out of here. So it's going to be kind of hard to figure out, or not, maybe not hard, but we're going to have to be kind of picky about where we pick in our, or place in our fans. Man, I cannot speak. And we have 3 in the front that needed power, but I only can see 2 places for chassis fans, and 2 of those are being used by my Noctua fan, so we might have to get some splitters or something. So, be right back. Switching to the Ryzen does have some downsides, and one of the downsides is, well, maybe not particularly with Ryzen, it's actually more of a motherboard, is that the motherboard itself, the Asus Crosshair 6 Hero, while it does support bifurcation, it doesn't really like the ASRock server motherboard does. So the server motherboard allowed me to split a 16-lane PCI slot into 4 4-lane PCI slots. So what that did was, this card here, this Hyper M.2 card, has 4 NVMe drives plugged into it, running at 4x. So, and that was split all across 1 lane. Now, this motherboard can do that, but only 2 by 4 lanes or whatever. So it takes an 8-lane and splits it into 2. Is basically what it does. So what that means is I'm actually losing 2 of these NVMe drives. And I have to put this into a very specific slot in order to take advantage of that bifurcation. So that does kind of suck, but I can use the onboard NVMe slot to get 3. And in truthfulness, I've only been using 3 of the NVMe drives anyway for the last 1.5 years, because I never really got around to using the 4th. So that's actually works out in my favor. Now, the problem is I have to have a graphics card. So with Ryzen, you don't have onboard graphics. With the motherboards, they don't have built-in graphics like as media on the server does. So I have to have a discrete GPU. Have to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Can't get around it. So that means is I lose another PCI lane. Not a big deal. But that leaves me with one PCI lane left, and I have to have 10 gig networking. Absolutely have to have it. I've been working for a long time towards to get this goal, and I'm not going to give it up just yet. So that means we have to give up something. And what we're going to give up is the LSI SAS card. I'm going to plug in all of the SATA devices onto the motherboard because this luckily happens to have enough space for all of the drives that are in here. And we're going to roll with that. Now, the reason why I bought this in the first time was because the Marvell controllers on the ASRock motherboard was giving me a ton of errors, and so I needed this SAS card to avoid those errors in Unraid. Now, I figured it's probably best to use this back in that same ASRock motherboard in the future anyway, because it's going to be a server, it's going to run Unraid, so I'm going to need this. And I'm really hoping we get lucky here. And I wasn't able to find this out, but I'm really hoping to get lucky here. And then this ASUS motherboard does not use a Marvell controller for its SATA drive. So hopefully we get lucky. That's not a thing. Not sure, but we'll find out. Well, I'll find out at least while I'm running it. And if it is a thing, we'll switch back to using a SAS controller. We'll drop using NVMe more than likely. Well, you have one NVMe drive. And I don't know. We'll figure it out. I can't even think about that stuff right now. So moving forward, let's go ahead and get the last of the components installed, and I'll show you guys exactly where everything is going, just in case you run into this yourselves. So as previously mentioned, I have my GPU installed in the most bottom PCI lane. That is actually a 2.0 lane. This is an 8 lane PCI Express 3.0 lane. I have my NVMe installed. I'm going to put my Hyper X2, or I'm sorry, X16 in that spot. So we're gonna have to configure this to be to bifurcate into 2 slots. And finally, we're gonna stick our PCI 2.0 10 gig X540 into the uppermost slot, and we should be good to go from here. Okay, so that took a little bit longer than I had anticipated to boot. There's probably a few reasons why that is, but I took a screenshot of my previous drive configuration, so we're basically just going to make sure everything matches up. What's cool about Unraid is that it's already auto-discovered all of the regular disk drives, so I think we just have to reset our cache disks appropriately. So I'm looking for N3. There he is, and then we have an unmounted drive MZ. So, looks like he's already there. So we will start this up. I think we're good. All right, so the server's up. We're using about 28% of our memory right now. Some of that's allocated to the one virtual machine we have running. So I haven't started up everything just yet. I did start up my virtual machine. It's a Windows Server virtual machine, so that's up and running, installing updates as we speak. Looks like it's done, so we're just gonna reboot. And I guess we'll just go ahead and start all of our other stuff up. But yeah, we're done. I mean, we're set. Literally, we are done. There's nothing left to do. It's crazy how simple this is. So unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this video, or doing things like this in particular, because it is moving week. So this is the last project I get to do before I move. So I would expect maybe an update on this particular build in the future, as in, like, you know, how's it working out? Do I notice any performance differences? Things like that. And we'll see. Or I'll give you guys an update, or, you know, even if you guys have questions about the build in particular, you know, whatever it may be, just let me know, and I'll do my best to answer that, whether it be online or, well, through video form, I guess. So yeah, hit me up with your questions. I'm pretty happy with how this rolled. I mean, it's super simple to do this with Unraid. I mean, literally, I just pulled the USB out, swapped the hardware, and plugged it all in. Even changed from a SAS card to onboard SATA. Like, I mean, come on. Like, if it was any other operating system, I feel like I'd lose hours and hours worth of work. So yeah, thanks to everyone for watching, and see you in a couple of weeks, few weeks. I don't know how many weeks, a long time.